Good afternoon, all you awesome people out there. Good evening or good morning, by the way, wherever you happen to be. I'm Scott Churchson. That, of course, is Mr. JD Walker. And this, of course, is the Sports Den on Zingo TV, channel 249 and 250. Kindly make sure to rate and download the Zingo TV app on the iOS and Android devices. The app is free, so feel free to leave a comment. And one more thing, Zingo TV is also available on Google Chromecast, Amazon Fire, Fire TV sticks, Roku sticks, and all smart TVs 2016 and forward. Sir, it's NFL Week 1. How the hell are you?
Doing okay. Some gross weather down here in these parts today, but it was an okay weekend with a bit of a roller coaster, but hanging in there.
Yeah, unfortunately, you need the roller coasters in life to appreciate the level parts.
Oh, yes.
Yes. And as someone who hates roller coasters, I really prefer the level parts.
Yep.
All right. So basically, shock upon shocks, one of the side things that usually comes from bad weather, and now we're in hurricane season where we are, is also we are in NFL season. The NFL blows my mind, but it is literally 2 days away at this point. We're going to be talking a little bit about Week 1, what we got coming up on Thursday, a couple of the teams that we've got, a couple of the picks that we had because I was part of 2.5 fantasy drafts this year. Half of which actually being yours in this case here. So no pressure on me on that one.
Yeah, thank you for subbing in for me, as I had a conflict with covering a Union game the same day as my league's fantasy draft.
Well, we're going to talk a little soccer, and obviously the beatdown that the Union is pretty much giving on every single team right now. We'll get into that a little bit later. But yeah, there's no pressure on me. Your team came in last place last year. So I picked all your guys. So if you come in last place this year, that is 100% my fault. Feel free to pin all the blame directly upon me for that one.
I think of it this way: we got nowhere to go but up after last year. I sent you last year's roster and my the end of roster results and my draft results from last year, and you see what it's pretty clear why I finished last. Mainly Christian McCaffrey. So,
well, yeah. Well, we'll talk a little bit about that, Tom Brady and everything like that. Steph basically is a part of 0 drafts, which means she is guaranteed to not lose a single game this season in her entire fantasy league. Kudos to that. Jealous. Yeah. I will probably be losing I'm probably going to lose by tonight. The season hasn't even started yet. But yeah, in this case here, like I said, we are starting off on Thursday with one hell of a matchup here between the Super Bowl reigning champion, the Rams, and the team that is expected to compete or win the Super Bowl this year in the Buffalo Bills. This is a great way, I think, to start off, the NFL season here. I think what makes it even doubly interesting is the fact that Von Miller will be facing the team he won the Super Bowl with last year, and he knows that offense. Any thoughts?
He knows that offense, and he's still at the prime of his career, and he hasn't been injured yet. Mm-hmm. Which is Von Miller has had some on and off injury issues over the years, but he's still at the top of his game. I'm very surprised that I believe it was a 6-year deal that Buffalo signed him to, which that is way more than I expected for somebody with 10 years in the league already. But the Rams offense is still a juggernaut. If they pick up where they left off last year, then it's still on the Bills defense to stop them. But as we also saw last year, that Allen can keep up with the best of them. So This should be a close one either way. The spread currently is, let's see, Bills minus 2.5, which is a bit of a surprise being on the road, but this is really a pick'em game, I believe.
I think part of the reason for that again is Von Miller, because he spent a good chunk of the season last year, plus throughout the playoffs, in those practices against that offense. So he sees certain things, and he's a very, very smart corner. Not just a talent, but he's also very, very smart and very savvy. So I think that was part of the idea. Not one of the many reasons I think they were going to sign him, but the Bills may have looked at that schedule and thought to themselves, you know what? I think basically we can really, we can go after one of the best teams here and make a statement on national TV, because I think a lot of people right now are really not sold on the Bills just yet. And in the AFC East, they are still one of the less popular teams in their own division.
I mean, I think that Buffalo still easily takes the AFC
Mhm.
East again this
Mhm.
year for sure. I'm not really sure what to expect out of the Patriots. They're really the only team that can compete with the Bills on any level. But there's a lot of rumblings out of Patriots camp and through the preseason that Mac Jones is kind of in a sophomore slump. So we will see how that goes over the course of the season. But unless he takes a huge leap forward and Allen takes a huge step back, I don't see the Patriots overtaking the Bills this year. Um, I do think that Al. I'm. I will be very surprised if Allen can keep this up for the third year in a row,
Mhm.
playing at the crazy high level that he has. But even if he does take a small step back, that's still better than most of the quarterbacks in the league. So I think the Bills take this one, and I think the Bills are set for another deep playoff run this year. Whether they finally break through and get to the Super Bowl, that remains to be seen. But I do think that they're in for that. They're still. Um, I like them a little better than the Rams at this point.
I think so. Now, just to clarify something that I said, I want to clean it up a little bit. I'm not saying the team doesn't have talent. I'm saying that the
Mhm.
team in the AFC doesn't necessarily get the respect it deserves because it doesn't have the
Yeah,
massive, super high profile names like a Patrick Mahomes or Russell Wilson, all the teams out west, essentially. So they get overlooked, I think, a little more than they deserve. And I think when it comes to the AFC East, they might be the second most popular team, maybe even third most popular team because they're Buffalo in the middle of nowhere. They're not the Patriots with Belichick. They're not, a team like Miami who had a Tyreek Hill, Miami, Florida in the winter. So I look at it from the perspective of the fact from a popularity and respect standpoint, I don't think they get the amount they deserve. That's part of the reason why I think a big win on Thursday and a definitive win on Thursday, despite being the road team, I think is a great way for the rest of the league to take notice and be like, you know what? We have to give them more love here. I do think, like you, I think the Bills take this one, just because of the fact that I think, like I said, it's the Von Miller factor. I think just him knowing that offense, I think is going to make a big, big difference here. And both teams are rested, both teams are hungry, and they're ready. And yeah, I think I think it's going to be a good one. So
I think a bigger factor is also Allen picking apart a Rams defense that no longer has Von Miller.
that is true. That's a good point too.
And while the Bills don't have as many casual fans as teams like the Patriots, from having been so bad for so long, Bills Mafia is the the most, I think, one of the most dedicated and passionate fan bases in the country. So while they may not have the national appeal, they have huge regional appeal, and Bills Mafia will be out in force. So no matter where they go.
And by the way, credit to Bills Mafia when they beat Lamar Jackson and the Ravens in the playoffs a couple years ago. They raised $250,000 to Lamar charity. So Bills Mafia raised that money for the opposing quarterback's charity. So
Yeah.
respect where it deserves there. I think it's a really cool gesture. Like in this case here, there's a few other teams that basically I wanted to cover a little bit, cover a couple of games here. One of the big ones here, they're calling it the game of the week. It's the Bucks and the Cowboys. Now, this is going to be really interesting, I think, because of the fact that all the off the field issues that have been going on with Tom Brady. You posted something yesterday that apparently there was like an 11-day separation between him and Giselle. Is that going to affect the on the field thing? I personally just didn't believe that this team was going to be as strong as years past. And I think Tampa is going to lose a little bit, and it's going to be a little bit more of a closer division this year than years past, especially if he's having marital problems on top of it, because it will permeate no matter how much of a warrior Tom Brady is. But in this kind of game, it is the Cowboys. I don't trust the Cowboys. I don't believe the Cowboys are really as strong as Cowboy fans would say they are. Right now, the number is 1.5 for the Bucks. I think the Bucks do take this, but I think it's going to be a tougher hill climb for the Bucks than years past. But they do win this one at least.
The Cowboys are never as good as Cowboy fans think they are.
Looking at you, Sheldon. Yeah, the Cowboys are the only team that whose fan base can assume that they can go 18-0 in the regular season.
Patriots are like that too.
But the Patriots, I think, deserve it. I mean, when you had the Tom Brady, Belichick factor, even now with Mac Jones, I think, I would trust the Patriots to go further into the playoffs than I would the Cowboys. But yeah, Cowboy fans are just like, book it. We're going 20-0 in the regular season, and we're not going to give up a single point. Whoop!
Yeah. But also every single year, people talk, oh, this will finally be the year that Brady slows down, and then he just doesn't. So until he actually does, I'm not saying anything. And also all of the other manufactured garbage around him in the off season, it's hard to even believe what is real or what isn't. How bad are the marital issues with Giselle? I don't know, and frankly, I don't really care. There's certainly enough money to split between the two of them. So really, I do think that I agree that I think the Bucks win, and that the Bucks are probably not the Super Bowl contenders that they have been the past few years, but it's too early to tell really how much there is to the supposed marital troubles that Voldemort is having. But I'm not buying anything from Dallas.
So basically,
a lot of people are saying that they can still win that weak division. No, I think that the Eagles win that this year. It probably only takes 10-7 to win that division, but I think
even 9-8.
Yeah, and I think Dallas takes a step back this year. Also, it's been almost 20 years since any team has won that division in consecutive years. It rotates every year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, even when the Giants won, it was a bad 10-6. And
right,
when
they only won
the second year they won 9-7 as a wild card. Oh no, I'm sorry, I had it backwards. I'm sorry. They won the division at 9-7 and then won the wild card at 10-6.
Yeah, so they've never. I think since the Eagles in, I believe, 2003, 2004, there has not been any team that has won the NFC East 2 years in a row. So with Dallas winning it last year, they're not winning it this year if that history holds. And considering that Washington and the Giants aren't winning much of anything, it kind of goes to the Eagles by default.
I think also because the Eagles have gotten stronger. I think Jalen Hurts is a stronger player now. I think they added Brown. They've added some things in there. And yes, it is also an addition by subtraction because your other three teams, in that entire division have taken a step backwards, a step up, but nothing to the Eagle level. So for Fly Eagle Fly, I think it is there. I'd be shocked if that division actually is won by anybody other than Philadelphia. I would be blown away by that. I just don't think it's going to happen. I'd love to see the Giants win the division and for God's sakes get back to a playoff spot, but it's not that year yet. And we're going to get into the Titans Giants game shortly in a minute. But so in this case here, just to close this one out, we're both on the Bucks.
Yes.
Okay, fair enough. So let's take this down a little bit. You know what? Actually, in this case, we're going to jump ahead a little bit. We talked the Eagles. Let's stick with the Eagles right now. They're up. It's a plus. They're giving 4 to the Lions. They're playing in Detroit right now, but again, this is the Eagles. This is the Lions. There's no reason I don't think that the Eagles can lose this game.
I think that the Eagles easily cover that spread, but it's a lot of surprises that you see, especially. The Eagles have had a tendency to have a slow start the past few years, but I don't see that happening against Detroit. But the Lions haven't done much of anything, despite despite Dan Campbell and Hard Knocks fame. I really don't think that you're going to see much of anything from the Lions as per usual. So the Eagles easily take that one. I'm looking forward to seeing the chemistry between. I'm looking forward to seeing chemistry between Hurts and AJ Brown, how that develops over the course of the year.
Oh, I think because it's going to be good chemistry there.
If that turns out to be very good chemistry, then the Eagles can do some serious damage later in the year.
All right. So basically, staying in division here, we're going to stick with some of the local teams for us that we often suffer with. Giants are going into Tennessee right now, facing the Titans. Now, this can't be right here because it's showing Oh no, you know what? It's got it. Okay, the Titans are favored by 5.5 on that. That makes a little more sense. Giants are a huge question mark right now. I think they're a step up, but they're not going to be able to go into Tennessee and beat that team on the road. Not with Ryan Fitzpatrick, not with Derrick Henry. You know, this is a better Giants team, but they're going to get run over, I think, on Sunday.
Yeah, not. I don't see anything from the Giants for much of anything this year, and not against a perennial playoff team like the Titans. Playing on the road, that one could get ugly fast.
Yeah. Well, if it's the Giants from years past, usually what'll happen is it'll be close for the first half. You know, maybe like 10-7, 13-6, kind of a close thing. And then the second half basically is a complete nosedive, and then it ends up being 44-10. So this would not surprise me in the least if it went that direction. The Titans will run, like I said, run this one. This gets complicated for me because Derrick Henry is one of my running backs in one of my fantasy leagues. So this always complicates it when you have fantasy league versus team loyalty. But irrespective, Titans take this one, run away with it. Your New York Jets are basically, they are at home right now facing the Ravens, who are favored by 7. Is there any way that yours and Brandon's Jets can pull off a win here?
I don't see it. I don't see. I'm hoping for some progress this year. I did see something this morning that Coach Saleh is optimistic and leaving the door open for Zach Wilson to come back this week. I think that's a huge mistake. I think that they should not rush him back for week 1. Let Flacco go out there, see what he can do. Even if it's just to be cannon fodder for the Ravens defense, there's no need to push Wilson back into action this quickly. Hold him for week 2. It depends how his rehab and practice goes this week, but they haven't officially ruled him out yet. This could just be gamesmanship to try and keep the Ravens guessing. So who knows? But I think that it is a huge mistake if Wilson does play this one, and they should go with Flacco. With the signings to shore up the offensive line, that should hopefully be a little bit better. And I think that the Jets defense is much improved this year, but there's still such a long way to go, and they have a brutal early schedule. So yep. I don't see. So just as usual, I really don't see much reason for much hope for this. And that 2020 draft from the supposed draft guru, Joe Douglas, it looks like a massive dud. When your best players out of that draft are a punter and a special teams player, that's a bust. That's a bust of epic proportions from a team that has not drafted much of anything for the better part of 10 years, which is why they're the worst team in football over the past 5 years, tied with, of course, the Giants.
Mm-hmm. However, worst team since 2020 is not either one of the.
I think we just lost your sound, Scott. Okay, and Scott froze. All right, so I'll just keep rolling with this until Scott comes back. Apologies if this is dropping for any technical difficulties. We also have the Raiders-Chargers late game on Sunday on CBS. That's in LA with the Chargers favored by 3. I think that Herbert is the next quarterback to take that next big step this year. We'll see if he leaps forward like Josh Allen does. But I think that the Raiders can the Raiders make the playoffs again this year? That's gonna be a tough one in what is probably the strongest division in football. I think all 4 teams may finish over 500 this year, but I still think that Denver is pulling up the rear in that division. Probably my pick is the Chargers to win that, and the Chargers will win and cover that 3-point spread. And as we wait for Scott to sort out his technical difficulties, let's keep it rolling. We also have the Broncos at the Seahawks on Monday Night Football. We are starting Monday Night Football out with a bang this year, with Russell Wilson facing his former team, favored by 6.5. Not something you usually see on the road, but the Seahawks are looking historically bad this year for a team that was trying to wait for. It felt like they had a staring contest also all offseason to wait for the 49ers to cut Jimmy Garoppolo, and then the Niners didn't cut Jimmy Garoppolo because they knew that Seattle would pick him up. So they had a choice between, not really much of a choice at all, between Geno Smith and Drew Lock, which with Drew Lock getting COVID, that ended up with Geno Smith being the week 1 starter in Seattle. Oof. It's early to say that they're tanking, but if Geno Smith is your starter going into the season, you're in for a very, very long season. So Broncos with the extra revenge factor of Wilson coming back to Seattle for his first game, the much richer Russell Wilson after signing a massive extension, even though despite not playing for a game for the Broncos yet, and so I think that the Broncos take this one easily.
And I think, can you hear me at this time? Did we finally fix this? Maybe perhaps for at least 10
All
minutes?
right, now we have your sound back. I think we're good.
Hate this so much. Anyway,
I don't know. Since went through your machine, I don't know how much of that actually got out over the air, but I just
you were live the whole way through. I just wasn't existing. Okay. So yes, so we'll look into that in its own due course. But so Russell Wilson right now, I think it's ironic that you got that massive show, come back in this case. I think he will be well received by Seattle for the most part, but they're in a rebuild right now. I think Seattle will lose this game. I think there you go. See, you're getting some love. You're getting some love down there, man.
All right.
You don't even need me. I'm going to sign off. I'll catch you later.
Please
don't. I am sorry about that. But I think in this case, as far as Russell Wilson goes, I think it'll be a good comeback for him. I think it'll be a good win for that team. Again, he knows the defense pretty well. He knows the style pretty well. And they know him pretty well, him individually, but he knows more about Seattle than Seattle knows about the Broncos here. And I think that's going to be a bit of a factor.
That and just that team has just been absolutely gutted in Seattle.
Oh, yeah.
There really isn't. There really isn't much there to speak of. And it was evident last season, that everything was falling apart. It was best for both sides for Wilson to move on. Because that relationship had run its course. It's fascinating to me how fast the 12th man has turned on Russell Wilson, because they went from missing him and being sad that he was leaving to now hating the guy and saying, wow, and all kinds of trash talk on the internet of, really, you gave him that extension? But they were crying when he was traded a few months back. So,
dude, that was a bigger extension than I think he deserved. I get you got to have to try and keep with the West and everything. And we've talked about the fact that the West has gotten a lot stronger. However, that is a lot of money to throw. I don't know what's the trend now with the fact that you have all of these NFL quarterbacks who are making just obscene amounts on these contract extensions. Watson first, then Kyler Murray, and now Russell Wilson. I mean, was all of this just from Patrick Mahomes' contract, who granted was at a level far beyond these guys, but did he spark a trend here that will be the future of the NFL?
Well, it's worth noting that all of the quarterbacks you just mentioned got way more guaranteed money, and guaranteed money is the number that matters in these NFL contracts. They got more guaranteed money than Mahomes did in that deal, and they don't deserve it. Murray has not won anything. Especially towards the end of last season, they clearly had enough misgivings for ownership to put that stupid independent study clause that received a lot of attention in the offseason.
Oh, God.
That had such outcry that they did take it out. But that seemed to me like it was ownership and Michael Bidwell just trying to stick it in for to try and make Murray look bad, which all that does is make both sides look bad. It makes Murray look incompetent. It makes the Cardinals look incompetent for giving him that extension, and it makes Murray look lazy. Everybody loses. So, just what is the actual point of that? Watson, I'm not even going to touch that because I need to stay FCC safe here.
I left you in the chat deliberately because I didn't know whether or not you wanted to bring it up, so that's fine.
All I'm going to say is that just there is so much wrong with that contract and how it was structured and the amount of money, but we'll just leave it at the Browns are the Browns, and just it's an unseen amount of stupidity from the mistake and incompetence from the mistake by the lake.
And we're most hated team in football, and oddly enough, in my opinion, one of the ugliest uniforms as well, especially that dark brown. Looks like blood. But anyway, so we pretty much, I think, wrapped up all of them. Any of the final thoughts maybe before we move on to certain Red Bull players seeing red?
It's September. We have kids going back to school, so like it or not, NFL is here.
Yeah, and speaking of kids, we had a little bit of a problem with RBNY, Mr. Drew Yearwood, against the team that you were covering, the Philadelphia Union. The Union have a nasty tendency to start agitating players and agitating teams because of the fact that they are just such a phenomenal and brutally strong team. That in the process, in a moment of weakness, Drew Yearwood kicked the ball deliberately in the stands and hit the kid. Honestly, it was a sad moment. You see the crying kid there. You see the one dude with his hand up, because Yearwood immediately realized his mistake, went over there, tried to apologize, and they're like, we are not having any of it. So the fact that this happened, this is, like I said, this is an RBNY team right now that is trying to keep up with the Union, which frankly no team is able to do anyway. And it was a sad state of affairs because that kind of stuff is nightmare. And for soccer and MLS, the fans that you have are immensely devoted and passionate. This is a terrible thing that happened to RBNY. Drew Yearwood, I think, realized the mistake as soon as he did it, and he will probably live with that mistake and the guilt probably for as long as he lives.
I haven't seen if the league has tacked on an extra suspension yet for this, but I think they absolutely should. In addition to the standard one-game red card suspension, I believe they should tack a few extra games onto this because it was stupid, it was immature, it was dangerous, resulting in injury to a child and his mother, who as you saw in the video clip, you can clearly see that she's bleeding from the mouth a little bit. So it's a bad look for everybody all around that resulted in, let's say, a colorful chant from the Red Bull fans that were left against their own player for doing such a stupid thing. So I'm not aware of any league discipline, but if Paul Rushing the Union trainer attempting to defend his own player gets 2 games, then I think that this gets 3 for sure for intentionally kicking a ball into the stands and injuring a fan. I think that MLS needs to send a message here that this kind of conduct should not be tolerated.
And they probably will. Also, I'm sure the PR department for the Red Bulls did everything, immediately jumped all over this to make peace on this, because technically, by definition, this is a legal lawsuit. It could be construed as assault.
Some ambulance chasing lawyer will definitely jump in on this and try to throw lawsuits out there.
Yes, possibly the ones involving the Camp Lejeune, which I see nothing but ads for and spam for constantly. That's my own beef in general. But anyway, as far as this goes, this is something that is a black mark, not just on the Red Bulls themselves, but also on the sport as a whole, because MLS is starting to become more popular. It's starting to get more love. Apple TV paid $250 million for the rights for this. And they are probably looking at this also and making determinations on how they're going to run with it, because they are going to have the ownership rights for it. And there's a massive concern from their side how this kind of stuff is going to look on the Apple product as well.
I will say this, that if this is handled correctly, it is something that can and should be handled and move on from. I don't think that this should linger that much, but there absolutely should be extra discipline from the league for this, and and clearly, as you mentioned, the union are bringing this out of players because they've just been so dominant the second half of the year, where they're now tied in points with LAFC for the Supporters Shield, with LAFC currently having the edge on wins. And Philly has not only already clinched a playoff spot, they've clinched a top 3 finish in the Eastern Conference already with a month left to go in the season. Because with the match against the Red Bulls the other day, the Red Bulls are not able to catch Philly, so it's only Montreal, and outside of it, and if a miracle happens, NYCFC could tie them, but
the
Philly
next has the tiebreaker.
Yeah, and the next point it would immediately clinch Philly finishing higher than NYC. Remains to be. Montreal has also been playing well, so they're the only ones with any chance of catching the Union at this point. But they're still 8 points clear,
which is interesting because Montreal is actually a better road team than home team at 9-4. So if the two teams actually met in the Eastern Conference Finals, you have a team that has not yet lost at home versus a team that has done better on the road than at home. So you look at these things, that could be one dynamic matchup. Right now, RBNY, I think, is struggling a little bit. NYCFC 100% is struggling right now. They've lost 6 out of the last 7. Their press conferences usually just center around, we're hoping to get this player back. They're decimated by injuries and have 7 matches in a 21-game stretch. So it is hell on wheels for NYCFC right now. And Philadelphia, I think they won the game against Atlanta the other day 4-1, which is unusual because A, they didn't score 6 goals, and B, they gave up 1.
And they gave up that one goal was kind of a fluke, on a crazy play that even Andre Blake himself would say that he should have had that one, but they made up for it with a shutout in the next game that gave Andre Blake the record for most shutouts by a Union goalie in a single season. The Union are breaking season-long records with a month left to go. They've already passed their own franchise record for most goals in a season. You have I believe Gazdag with the most goals in a season. For a player, they're breaking records all over the place. This is a team that, while they were a little slow to start in the first half of the season, they had the string of ties for a while. They have just been blowing up, and they're taking care of business at home, have not lost at home yet this year, and also they're beating up bad teams and just absolutely destroying them. So over the past 4 games, they now have a combined score of, I believe, 18-1 that they have outscored their last 4 opponents, including the Red Bulls playoff team. So it's one thing to beat up on the bad teams like Houston and DC, but it's another to handle the Red Bulls in their own building as well as they did.
Yeah. And here's what's interesting about this, to come back to that one for a sec. When NYCFC played against the Red Bulls, a fight broke out in the stands between the fans. And as a result, it ended up being where NYCFC was suspended. They weren't allowed to bring the drums to the stadium for like a month, and a bunch of other things that were built into that. So you look at what happened here with RBNY, and I almost wonder, to some degree, does it in a tiny way exonerate what actually ended up happening with NYCFC?
These are both intense rivalries, where NYCFC and
how we doing on a
where NYCFC and the Red Bulls have a lot of there's a lot of bad blood there. The Red Bulls are a traditional rival for the Union, since the Union came into the league. Although that rivalry has been passed over the past year by NYCFC, there's still a lot of bad blood here, and a lot of bad blood between Red Bulls fans and the local rivals. So, and then of course the issues with NYCFC and Philly. So just these
Yeah.
are none of these three teams and groups of fans like each other. As you were flamed and burnt to a crisp, but on various online forums
Oh boy.
trying to extend any kind of peace offering.
I came in pleased with a white flag, and they're just like, we're going to torch that shit.
Yep.
It's like, you know what it is? I'm used to certain other subreddits where they're like, okay, fine, we know, whatever. But yeah, Philly fans are a unique species unto yourself in every facet, I think, all the way through.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
But the Union I like to say that Union games are like a party.
Dude,
But
yeah.
a fun kind of party, but a fun, happy party versus what you might get at Eagles games, which is more of a let's get drunk and destroy things kind of party.
But a lot of times the fans from one carry over to the other. So different environment, but same energy, same vibe. Like I said, I mean, that's the thing about Philadelphia. They have, the seats shake when a goal is scored.
Mhm.
So there have been games out there where I've been following, on the side I knew you were at the game. And I'm seeing the score go up like 4, 5, 6. Tom Karwacki is sending me messages like, we just hit 7. And I'm just thinking to myself, are you feeling every single one of these under your seat every time?
What's funny is that especially in the games against the bad teams, like Houston, and while they did beat Atlanta 4-1, and that final result was on a goal in the last few minutes, they're firing on all cylinders. They have some of the best strikers in the league. Julian Carranza is is a fantastic up and coming player. Gazdag and Mikhail Yuri have been playing great. Just there's a lot of talent to go around. They've been done pretty well with injuries in recently. They've been staying healthy, as I knock on wood over here for that for them to keep up that kind of luck. Whereas a lot of the other league powers have kind of been fading the past few months after selling off their best players in mid-season transfer window, with NYC and LAFC.
And not replacing them in the process, yes.
LAFC had the same issue, so it wasn't just NYC that did that. That's one of the reasons for between the player transfers and injuries. That's been why LA has slowed down in the past few weeks. But just it's a statement by the rest of the league. Coach Curtin is quick to say in every post-game press conference that the fan atmosphere, he said that you can feel the life coming out of the other team with each goal.
Yeah.
Just the noose tightening with each one, and you just see the opponent's morale sinking. And it is fantastic to watch.
It's funny because when you write for a team, and I went through this last year when NYCFC went to the finals and won, you have to remain professional, but a fan, so you have to be, you have to actually keep yourself as kind of an even keel. But when you're in a situation like that, like I said, the passion and the energy, it's hard not to feed off of that. And for you right now, you're going through in some ways probably better than what I went through last year, because NYCFC went through a period of like 500 some odd minutes without scoring a single goal. You have not had that. Yeah. You have just had like sweep all the way. And you kind of came into this when the team was just starting to get hot, and you're just riding the tide right here. The one thing
I'm loving every minute of it.
Oh, dude, you should. You 100% should. The only thing I will say is that come playoff time, your connections that you have right now, I'm not going to mention who they are it goes through a different source on that. So that'll be something that we'll address in due time now that your team has officially made the playoffs. So we will cover that, and then get you in for as much as we can do. And, if your team gets to the finals, I might make the trip down with you if I can get in.
Oh, yeah.
Because, my finals last year were Portland. I wasn't making that trip.
I mean, if they get the Supporters Shield, then every game goes through Philly.
Yeah,
they're pretty close to clinching the Eastern Conference. They play Orlando on Saturday. Right now, because right now with with Philly in the top spot, they would get the first round bye, and they would play the 4-5 winner. Which currently in the 4-5 slot you have NYCFC and Orlando, who has been inconsistent but still playing fairly well for the past few weeks.
Orlando beating a heartbreak of a team in NYCFC 2 Sundays ago.
Yeah,
in the final 10 seconds, they scored a game-winning goal, killed all the New Yorkers.
Yeah, so that will be an interesting first round matchup, and if NYC does manage to pull through that game, I'm expecting another one of those 5-1 beatdowns with the bad blood between those teams. Not trying to get ahead of ourselves a bit, but and also my thoughts about the Supporters Shield is almost like a curse. I believe only 3 times in the past 15 years it has a Supporters Shield team won the MLS Cup. I don't have it in front of me, but I looked it up recently, and it was very few. The track record the past few years especially has been exceptionally bad, with New England losing to NYCFC in the first round last year, or the second round rather, in their first game after a 3-week layoff. The Union will not have that long of a layoff because of the crunched calendar this year with the World Cup starting in November, so it will just be 1 week instead of 3 full weeks off. So we'll see how things shake down. But the Union are the hottest team in the league right now, the best team in Philly. It's a very hot ticket. Although it was a slow arriving crowd because of the traffic on last Wednesday, it ended up mostly filling up. I don't know if it was a complete sellout, but it was a very impressive crowd for a midweek game. And tickets for the weekend games are impossible right now. So it's
nice being on the inside making connections. Isn't it?
And the fan engagement is there and the interest is there. I would just personally like to see more media coverage of it. You can see my writing at our website, streampunkent.com, and your writing about NYCFC as well. Yes,
and the New York Boulders, who also did reach second place in the East in the Frontier League, they got their wild card match tomorrow. So good on them. But yeah, for you, like I said, we'll close this out in a minute. But the plus side is also you get free cheesesteaks. So
yeah, the food is pretty good.
Yeah, I'm jealous a little bit on that one to a degree. All right, so we got about 10 minutes left. At this point, basically, we're going to switch over to baseball since we got the last bit of time here. Your Mets are doing well. Wow, that is not going to show up at all. Let's fix that one for a sec. Your Mets right now.
I am. I've been concerned for a few weeks because while they have been playing well, and there was a lot of chatter like, oh, if they get through the next few weeks, then September will be a breeze, because they have such an easy schedule. Yeah, well, guess what? The defending World Series champions are right behind them and have been methodically chipping away at their lead since the All-Star break. So for as well as the Mets have been playing, the Braves are playing just as well and better in some cases, and their schedule is just as easy. The Mets are playing Pittsburgh in a 3-game series. It was rained out yesterday, so they have a game tonight and then a doubleheader tomorrow. So I haven't checked as far as how that messes up their pitching rotation, whether it helps or hurts. I think the Braves are playing Oakland. For as well as the Mets have been playing, they're not gaining ground, and they have now lost ground, and they're down to a game. I've been worried about this for a while. With my history as a Mets, and I've seen this team blow a 6-game lead in 12 games. So this is easy right here for the Mets to blow this. Despite how well they've been playing, and they really need this division championship to set up for playoff success. Because with how their pitching rotation is and how DeGrom especially does not pitch well on short rest. Mm-hmm. So they need to get that rotation right to get the most out of DeGrom and Scherzer. And by playing wild card games, and this is a difference between between going on a deep run or just getting bounced by the Dodgers in the division series, possibly, or subject to or even worse, subject to a short series against a resurging Phillies team. If they hold on to that 5 spot. So
I think the Phillies are not going to take that division. I think you guys are safe there.
Right, but if the Braves overtake them, they would be playing the Phillies in a 4-5 wild card matchup.
That is true. Now, the funny thing about this, I'm looking at this right now. Since the All-Star break, the Mets are 27-15, which is a very solid 643 win percentage. But like you said, Atlanta is 28-13 for 683 win percentage. The fact that they have done this much over the literally quarter of the season, credit to the Mets for 643. That is always solid. But the Braves have just figured out a way to turn it on at the right moment. Also hold true to St. Louis. Dodgers, you expect that from the Dodgers, but St. Louis is an impressive 29-12 during that run.
Well, that's because they're beating up on 4 teams that aren't trying. These central divisions are absolute garbage. There's all these garbage Midwest teams that they get to beat up on. And also the Braves or whoever has that first wild card spot are going to have a better record than the Cardinals.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have the Dodgers who are just head and shoulders above everybody.
The Dodgers are just doing what the Dodgers
do. Beat them in a 3-game series last week. So I've said for a while, and I still feel that way. This Mets team reminds me a lot of 2006.
Mm-hmm.
And with how they've played the past few days, I kind of have a hunch it may end the same way. Which is in the NLCS to the Dodgers. But if they don't figure out this Braves situation, and while I wouldn't really call this a collapse by the Mets because the Braves have just been playing better, at least as of now. But there's 27 games left, which is an eternity. When you're dealing with 2 teams that both have easy schedules and finish the season playing with a 3-game series playing against each other. So this could go down in the wire.
And what's interesting about that is we've got a couple minutes left here is if it does come down to that 3-game series at the end, that's going to be a playoff match in its own right. If these teams are a game apart either way, this is going to be an absolute war. And I think the ratings on that are going to be through the absolute roof.
I don't know if the ratings for anything have been through the roof in baseball this year. Heck, the ratings for anything that isn't football haven't really been that great, when it got in regular season stuff. But there will be definitely some interest. And there's the fans of those teams that are paying attention are absolutely fully engaged. While I don't pay attention to 162 games like I used to, and since I'm not in the local area anymore, I'm not able to watch Mets games really. Aside from catching a national game rather.
Not that you want to anyway.
Right. So really, this is going down to the wire. And for the last few weeks, as I've heard some other Mets fans say, "Oh, we're setting up for an easy September." No. Not with the Braves playing as well as they have, and both teams are feasting on the dregs of the league that aren't even trying.
And what's interesting about it is the fact that you've watched the Mets lead diminish over the course of the last few weeks. So it's dropping down to 1 in this kind of situation. Every single game suddenly becomes critical because now the Braves are smelling the division lead. It's a big difference when you're up. The Padres, for example, it's 19 games. That's over. The Yankees, I'll use that as an example here. When they were up by 12, 13, 15 games, it was out of sight. But then eventually they started dropping. The Rays started climbing. The Rays started to smell the lead. And I'm surprised that the Rays did not sweep that series because this would be 3 games out at this point. But at this point, they're still only up by 5 games now. The Rays are still smelling that division right now, just like the Braves are.
Aaron Judge is the only one bailing out the Yankees at this point. Because they would be Oakland bad
Mhm.
the past 2 months if they didn't have Judge even scraping together the wins that they have been able to get. I believe, as I think you said, it was the third worst record in the American League since the All-Star break that the
It
Yankees
is
had.
now. Now,
Yeah.
with their 2-game win streak, they're now the third worst. They were actually legit tied for the worst with Detroit for a bit.
Yeah, so this is a team that they're going to sweat through September. Even if they do hold on to that division, I do not see them advancing very far in the playoffs. The Yankees, rather.
And as I put on the video that I put up on here, why things could get worse. It is my belief, though, that even if the Yankees get bounced early, Aaron Boone stays. Aaron Judge is gone, but Aaron Boone stays. I don't think they get rid of him. I don't.
They need to clean house with that team, and that
I don't
means
think they have the courage to.
and that's why the Yankees are going to stay with this as it is. I don't understand why Cashman is untouchable. He's done nothing.
Past glory.
Right, but past glory was still okay. So you bought a World Series in 2009. Wonderful. They haven't done jack in 20 years other than that. If the old man was still around, Cashman would have been fired about 10 years ago.
Cashman was almost fired several times, even during that run.
Yeah. So
Joe Torre did.
Hal is not George, and he is on the rare times that Hal does talk to the press, he's very adamant about that, and how he's run the team has shown that, and I do respect that. They've also maximized revenue. Their payroll is about the same as it was 10, 12 years ago, but their revenues are doubled, and the team is worth, I think, almost triple in that time. Going from probably around $1.5 billion net value to about $5 billion plus now. Just there, as I believe Brandon called them, a law firm that happens to have a baseball team. It's more like a mint. They just print money, and they aren't putting it back into the team as much as they used to. And not that you need to, but this isn't sustainable.
All right, let's just go ahead. I'm sorry, we got 2 minutes left.
But this Yankees team reminds me a lot of the mid 2000s Yankees teams around 2005, 2007, the last few Torre years where they had a good regular season and just flamed out in the division round. That's about where I see the Yankees heading this year.
Nice, yeah, true. I agree on that. That's probably what I want to see too, because again, these players are getting tired, and we'll see what happens. They even come to the end of the month. One last thing on this, we got 2 minutes left. So, in 2002, the team was worth $730 million. So that is coming right off the heels of the dynasty and September 11th and all of the trips to the World Series and all the wins that they had. In 2002, they were worth $730 million. In 2022, 20 years later, according to Statista.com, which is nothing but statistics, and I love it for that, they went from $730 million in 2002 to $6 billion this year.
It's
a
mint with a baseball team.
Wow, I didn't even think it was that high. I did not even think it was going to be that high. Holy hell!
I thought $5 billion was my guess. So
no, Statista is a really good site for having numbers, especially when it comes to money. So yeah, according to them, last year was 5.25, and then it was $5 billion in 2020. So they've gone up a clean billion in 2 years. Anyway, we got to wrap this up at this point. We got to do the commercials and all that.
They still charge some press for food.
Yeah, supposedly they charge $15 for the press to eat there.
Allegedly, I don't know what the details are on that. So
that's okay. I go for NYCFC and I get all the lasagna and chicken parm I want. So anyway, we got to wrap this up tonight at 7 p.m. It is Tales from the Film Set on Streampunk Cinema. We will be talking about a plethora of different things in there, including the decision by Amazon to start deleting written reviews of Rings of Power on IMDb, which, by the way, they own, that happened to be below the 6 rating. So if you rated the show at a 1 through 5 and had a written definition about why you feel it's that way, gone. As always, basically, Streampunk Sports on YouTube, Streampunk Cinema on YouTube on that side of the fence. As far as Facebook goes, it is Streampunk Entertainment, regardless of where you're going with that, and Streampunk ENT, both for the website and for Twitter as well. For myself, I'm Scott. That is Mr. JD Walker. Thanks for all you guys that were commenting. I appreciate it. Give us your thoughts. You agree with the picks? You disagree with the picks? Do you like it? Do you hate it? Let us know, because in the end of the day, we work for you. So thanks as always for tuning in. Take care. Be groovy.